Have you ever wondered why people act the way they do, including yourself? In this story-style summary of the law of human nature, you'll discover the hidden emotional forces shaping every decision, relationship, and conflict. Listen closely, because understanding human nature can quietly change how you see the world forever. Most people believe they know themselves. They believe their thoughts are clear, their choices are logical, and their emotions are under control. Yet if this were true, the world would be a calmer place. Fewer arguments would explode over small misunderstandings. Fewer friendships would end suddenly. Fewer people would look back at their lives and wonder why they repeated the same mistakes again and again. Robert Greene begins the law of human nature by gently but firmly challenging this belief. He invites us to look at human behavior not as something neat and predictable, but as something emotional, messy, and often unconscious. He reminds us that humans are not as rational as they like to imagine. Beneath polite words and confident explanations, powerful emotions quietly guide behavior. These emotions shape decisions long before logic arrives to justify them. Imagine a man who believes he left his job because he wanted freedom. He tells himself and others that he was brave, independent, and tired of limitations. But deep inside, hidden even from himself, there may have been resentment toward authority, fear of failure, or anger from feeling unrecognized. The story he tells sounds logical, but the truth lives in emotions he never fully examined. This is how most human decisions are made. The book gently asks the reader to slow down and observe this pattern. When someone reacts too strongly to a small comment, when they feel offended without knowing why, when they suddenly lose motivation or feel intense dislike for a person they barely know, something deeper is at work. These reactions are signals from the emotional side of human nature, a side that evolved long before modern society, manners, and rational thinking. Greene explains that emotions come first. Thoughts come later. The human brain often feels before it thinks, even though people prefer to believe the opposite. This creates a dangerous illusion. People think they are choosing freely, when in reality they are being pushed by old fears, desires, and habits formed long ago. To bring this idea to life, the book often feels like a collection of human stories rather than a lecture. You see leaders who destroyed their own success because they could not control their pride. You see talented individuals who never reached their potential because they were secretly afraid of standing out. You see relationships that collapsed because both sides believed they were innocent and reasonable, while refusing to examine their own emotional triggers. One of the most important ideas in this first part is the concept of the inner child. Inside every adult lives an emotional memory of childhood experiences. These memories do not disappear with age. They hide quietly, influencing reactions in adulthood. A person who grew up feeling ignored may crave attention later in life without realizing why. A person who felt controlled as a child may resist authority even when cooperation would help them. These patterns repeat not because people choose them, but because they remain unaware of them. Greene encourages the reader to develop self-knowledge before trying to judge others. Without self-awareness, people project their emotions onto the world. They accuse others of arrogance while hiding their own insecurity. They see hostility where there is none because they carry unresolved anger inside. This projection creates endless conflict and misunderstanding. Think of a workplace where tension fills the air. One employee believes everyone is against them. They interpret neutral comments as attacks. Meetings feel personal. Stress grows daily. From the outside, others may see someone overreacting, but from the inside, that person feels completely justified. Their emotional lens colors reality. This is not rare. It is deeply human. The book suggests that emotional self-control does not mean suppressing feelings. Suppression only makes emotions stronger and more explosive later. Instead, Green invites the reader to observe emotions calmly, as if watching weather patterns. Anger rises. Fear tightens the chest. Envy whispers comparisons. By naming these feelings without judgment, their power weakens. Awareness creates distance, and distance creates choice. Another powerful theme introduced early is the danger of narcissism. Not the extreme kind that seeks attention loudly, but the quiet, everyday form that lives in almost everyone. Humans naturally focus on their own pain, their own desires, their own struggles. This self-focus can blind them to the feelings of others. When unchecked, it turns relationships into battles of ego. Green does not condemn this trait. He explains it. Humans evolved to care deeply about their own survival and status. In the modern world, however, this instinct can become destructive. People interrupt instead of listening. They seek validation instead of understanding. They argue to win rather than to connect. Over time, this creates loneliness, even among crowds. The antidote, the book suggests, is developing empathy as a skill rather than a vague moral idea. Empathy begins with curiosity. Why does this person act this way? What fear might be hiding beneath their behavior? What emotional need are they trying to satisfy? This approach does not excuse harmful actions, but it allows clearer judgment. When you understand motives, you gain power over your reactions. Throughout this part, Green returns again and again to the idea that humans are storytellers. People constantly tell themselves stories about who they are and why they act. These stories protect self-esteem. They hide weaknesses. They turn accidents into destiny and mistakes into noble sacrifices. The danger is believing these stories too completely. True growth begins when a person questions their own narrative. When they ask uncomfortable questions. When they notice patterns repeating across years and relationships. Why does this problem keep returning? Why do the same types of people enter my life? Why do I react so strongly to certain situations? These questions open the door to self-mastery. The tone of the book is not harsh. It is observant, almost compassionate. Green does not present humans as villains, but as emotional creatures struggling to understand themselves. He reminds the reader that everyone is shaped by forces they did not choose. Family dynamics, cultural expectations, early experiences, and personal wounds all leave their mark. This understanding creates patience with oneself and with others. Instead of reacting immediately, one pauses. Instead of assuming bad intentions, one looks deeper. Instead of feeling personally attacked by every disagreement, one recognizes emotional patterns at play. As part 1 unfolds, it becomes clear that the true subject of the book is power. Not power over others, but power over oneself. The kind of power that comes from seeing clearly. From understanding emotional currents before they pull you under. From choosing responses rather than being controlled by impulses. By the end of this part, the reader begins to sense a shift. The world feels less random. Human behavior starts to follow recognizable patterns. Emotions once confusing now feel familiar. And with this awareness comes a quiet confidence. Not the loud confidence of ego, but the calm confidence of understanding. Yet this is only the beginning, because once you start seeing human nature clearly in yourself, you cannot help but see it everywhere else. In friendships, in love, in ambition, in manipulation, in leadership, in conflict. The deeper laws are waiting to be revealed, and they will change how you read people, how you protect yourself, and how you influence the world around you. Once you begin to understand your own emotional nature, something remarkable happens. The world slows down. People become easier to read. Situations that once felt confusing now make sense. This is where the second half of the law of human nature truly opens up. It shifts the focus outward, guiding the reader from self-awareness into social awareness. From inner mastery into understanding the invisible forces that drive everyone around you. Robert Greene invites the reader to imagine life as a river of human behavior. Most people are carried by this river without noticing its direction. They react, collide, struggle, and exhaust themselves. But a few learn to step back and observe the current. These people do not fight human nature. They learn its patterns and move with it. One of the most powerful ideas in this part is that people constantly reveal themselves, even when they try not to. Words can lie. Smiles can deceive. But behavior never stops speaking. A person's habits, tone, timing, and emotional reactions quietly tell the truth. The problem is that most people are too distracted, too emotional, or too self-focused to notice. Greene explains that the first mistake people make is taking behavior personally. When someone is rude, dismissive, or cold, the immediate reaction is hurt or anger. But often, that behavior has little to do with you. It reflects inner battles, insecurities, or frustrations the other person carries everywhere. When you stop seeing every action as a judgment of your worth, you gain emotional freedom. This perspective changes everything. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of feeling insulted, you become curious. Why does this person need to dominate conversations? Why does another avoid eye contact and speak cautiously? Why does someone suddenly become charming only when they want something? Each behavior has roots, and those roots reveal needs, fears, and desires. Greene emphasizes that people are driven by their self-image. Everyone carries an idea of who they believe they are. This image must be protected at all costs. When reality threatens it, emotions rise. Defensiveness appears. Excuses form. Blame shifts outward. Understanding this makes conflict less personal and negotiation more effective. Think of a person who sees themselves as generous. If you suggest they were unfair, even gently, they may react strongly. Not because of your words, but because their identity feels under attack. Greene teaches that when dealing with people, it is wiser to work with their self-image rather than challenge it directly. Resistance fades when dignity remains intact. Another major theme is envy, one of the most hidden yet powerful human emotions. People rarely admit envy, even to themselves. It disguises itself as criticism, sarcasm, moral judgment, or indifference. Someone may downplay your success, find faults in your achievements, or suddenly distance themselves when you grow. These behaviors often come from unacknowledged envy rather than genuine dislike. Greene does not encourage paranoia. He encourages awareness. Envy becomes dangerous when ignored. When recognized calmly, it loses its sting. The book suggests humility as a shield. Avoid unnecessary displays of superiority. Share credit. Let others feel valued. This softens envy before it turns toxic. As the book moves deeper, it explores aggression and passive hostility. Some people express anger openly. Others hide it behind politeness, delays, or subtle sabotage. Both forms come from the same emotional source. Unexpressed resentment builds pressure. Understanding this helps you respond wisely rather than emotionally. Green offers a powerful idea here. People often provoke reactions to confirm their own worldview. A hostile person expects hostility. When you respond calmly, you break their script. This unexpected response can disarm them, leaving them confused rather than empowered. Leadership also takes on a new meaning in this part of the book. True leaders are not the loudest or most dominant. They are the most emotionally aware. They understand group moods. They sense tension before it explodes. They communicate clarity during uncertainty. Their strength comes from emotional intelligence, not force. The book shows how charismatic figures throughout history understood human nature deeply. They knew how to make people feel seen, valued, and inspired. They spoke to emotions rather than logic alone. This is not manipulation in the cruel sense. It is understanding the language people already speak inside. Green also warns about the shadow side of human nature. Every person has traits they deny. Aggression, selfishness, insecurity, desire for control. When denied, these traits emerge unconsciously, often in destructive ways. When acknowledged, they can be directed safely. This idea is uncomfortable but freeing. Accepting your darker emotions does not make you worse. It makes you honest. A person who knows their capacity for anger controls it better than someone who believes they are always kind. Self-acceptance becomes self-control. As the narrative continues, the reader learns the importance of patience. Human behavior rarely changes quickly. People reveal their true nature over time, not in dramatic moments. Consistency matters more than charm. Repeated actions matter more than promises. Those who rush judgments often regret them. Green encourages slowing down emotional reactions, creating space between stimulus and response. In that space lies wisdom. This skill alone can transform relationships, careers, and mental health. Instead of regret, there is clarity. Instead of conflict, there is strategy. The book also speaks to purpose. Humans need meaning. Without it, they become restless, anxious, and easily manipulated. When people lack direction, they cling to drama, ideology, or conflict to feel alive. Understanding this helps you avoid being pulled into unnecessary emotional storms. As Part 2 approaches its conclusion, the message becomes clear. Mastery of human nature is not about controlling others. It is about freeing yourself. Freeing yourself from emotional traps, unconscious patterns, and needless suffering. It is about seeing reality clearly and acting with intention. The calm power that emerges from this understanding is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek approval. It moves steadily, grounded in awareness. People sense it and respond to it, often without knowing why. In the end, The Law of Human Nature is not a book about judging people. It is a book about compassion through understanding. When you see how deeply emotions shape behavior, forgiveness becomes easier. Boundaries become clearer. Choices become wiser. You no longer expect perfection from yourself or others. You expect humanity. And in that expectation, you find peace. You learn to watch before reacting, to listen beneath words, to trust patterns over promises, to guide your emotions rather than obey them. And slowly, quietly, life becomes less chaotic and more intentional. This is the hidden advantage of understanding human nature. Not dominance, not manipulation, but freedom. I share stories like this every day. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one.